Hello builders, how are you today? I am Laszlo and today I'm going to talk about API Gateway Lambda authorizers, also known as custom authorizer. So let's see what an API Gateway Lambda authorizer is, what we are using it for, and how can we implement one. So let's say we have a device or a customer or client that has to make calls to API gateway, and it needs to go through a custom authorization. So in this case, we are going to send a request with an auth token, and we're going to have a Lambda authorizer, which is going to check this token in some database or make an external call to some other service to validate this token to see if it's valid. Or you could check it in some other ways, like decode the token and look for particular things. And then if your Lambda authorizer decides that all of this is fine and the token is valid, it will respond with an IAM policy to the API gateway, and then the API gateway will actually allow the other Lambda, which contains the business logic, to perform its duty, its mission. So this is in short what the purpose of the authorizer is, and now we're going to actually implement it. And I'm going to go to the AWS console for that. So here I am, but before that, actually let me show you something else. So I have created a SAM application which contains a SAM template implementing everything that I'm going to show you right now. So I have here the implementation for an API gateway with an authorizer, the product function, which contains the business logic, let's say, and the authorization function, so the Lambda authorizer. And here I have the authorizer function, the business logic, which is for now just a hello from Lambda. But I will make the link to this repo available. You can look for it under the video in the description area. And then you can just run a SAM deploy and it will work. I have just pushed this to the repository here, you can see it. Now let me actually build this by hand first so you can understand it better. And then you can take this SAM template and look at the README on how to deploy it if you don't know it, how to do it, and then you're going to be able to deploy this thing. So let's go back to the AWS console and let's build an API gateway first. So let's create a REST API. I'm going to choose new API and let's call this products API. Okay, create it. And now here I'm going to create a resource which is going to be products, like this. And then here I'm going to create a new method which is going to be a get. And here I will have to put the Lambda function that contains the business logic. For that, let me go to Lambda and let me create two functions. So first let's create the function that will hold the business logic. So let's call this my products function, for example. Node.js 18, that's fine. This will take a couple of seconds. Lately, Lambda creation takes a couple of seconds. Not sure why. Okay. Now I'm going to grab the code that I have here and replace this. Actually, it's mostly the same thing. So this does nothing special. It's just response with the 200 status code and sends the string hello from Lambda. So this should be our business logic. You can implement here various business logic things that you want in your application. For now, let's just keep it simple and keep it with a hello from Lambda. Okay, now I'm going to grab the rn of this function, and I'm going to paste it here at the Lambda function prompt. And let's click on save. It will ask us to give permissions. Okay, I have done this now. Now I have to go back and define my authorizer function. And this one, it's going to be a little bit more complex, but I'm going to explain it. So let's call this my custom authorizer. Node.js 18, it's fine. Let's give it some time to create it. So in the meantime, I'm going to grab the code and let's paste it in. Okay, my custom authorizer, it's fine. So here is the code. Let me make it bigger and let's look at what it's here. So my authorizer function, it's going to take an event, and from the event it will get the authorization token. I'm going to show you how to send this and where to set it up. So it takes this authorization token, and then here you could, as I said, call an OAuth provider, look up this token in your database if you self-manage the tokens, or decode the JWT token and do some additional verifications. It might even be a token that is not in a JSON web token, a JWT, but something else. In that case, you could also verify it in some way. I'm just going to do the following thing. I'm checking if the token is my secret token, and if it is, then I'm going to allow this request. By default, you see I am setting the default here var effect is deny. So by default everything is denied, and if the token is my secret token, I'm going to allow it. Then I'm going to get the resource from the event method rn, and then construct a response, which basically it will be a policy. So, and I'm going to show this policy later in the authorizer when we going to test it. So basically we're providing a principal ID, which here I'm just going to set it as user. Policy document version, this is something standard, you have to use it like this. And then we're going to create a statement which has to be execute API invoke. So we want to allow if or deny this invoke operation on the API gateway. And you see here I'm setting the effect, which is going to be taken from either from here, deny or allow. And then I'm setting the resource from the event method rn, and then construct the policy document and set it in the auth response. Also, I can add some additional context information. Let me think about the situation. Maybe you can have a tenant, and you set the tenant here, and then you set this context, and this will be available in the business logic Lambda function. So in the other Lambda function, for example, if you want to use the tenant in that function, it will be available from this context object, and then return the response. So it's as simple as that. So let me click on deploy. Okay, and now let's go back to API gateway, and here at authorizers I need to create a new authorizer, and let's call this my products authorizer. It's going to be a Lambda type of authorizer. You could also have Cognito, but that's a different use case. I've done a video on that a few weeks ago, so you can check that. I'm going to link that as well. And the Lambda function, we need to set here the authorizer that we just created, so my custom authorizer. And then we could choose what type of authorizer it will be, a token authorizer or a request authorizer. So a token will just take a token from the headers, but the request is a little bit more complicated. Here you can take the token from a query string, from a stage variable, from context, or from header, or you can even combine them. So you take something from the header, you take some other thing from the query string. So this is a little bit more complex. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do a simple token authorizer. But now there is some okay. So the token source will be authorization. Okay. And caching, you can cache the response, the authorizer response, so you will not every time have to call the authorizer and incur latency maybe. But for testing purposes, it's best to disable it. But if you want to cache the response, you can do it from here. So I'm going to disable it, and let's create it. And I have to give permissions, and now it's created. And now I can test it. So let me test this. So here is the test, and you have to provide an authorization header. And let's put some random string here and click on test. And what we're going to get, this is the response that you get, and this is actually constructed in the Lambda function here, what I've shown you a little bit earlier. And let us look at each of these things. So the version, this is something standard, as I said, and then we have the statement. The statement, we have the action, execute API invoke, and we can either deny, and this is the case with deny, because if you look at it, I only should allow in the case I have the my secret token. Otherwise, I'm going to deny. And the resource is actually the API gateway endpoint RN. So here you have the API, the account, the API ID, this KTZA man, and then we have the stage and the get method. Okay, so this is what it gets returned. So basically this means the business logic won't even get executed if this authorizer is called, because it's a deny. Now let's put in my secret token, and if I click on test, this time I'm going to get an allow, you see. So this request should be allowed. Okay, so I tested the authorizer. This is all fine, but this is just testing from here. We now need to actually associate it with our method. So let's go to resources, and here on the get, click on it, and on the method request, you have to go here and you have authorization, and you have to choose here the authorizer, but it doesn't show. And this is actually a known issue. If you get here, you have to refresh the whole page. So let's refresh from here, and once it's refreshed, let's go again to method request, authorization, and this time my product's authorizer shows up here. So okay, I'm now going to set it. So this get method is now protected by this custom authorizer. And actually, let's not do that. Let's put none, and let's deploy this API. Deploy API to a new stage. Let's call this prod deploy. Okay, write this. Now I want to grab this URL from here, and I'm going to bring in Postman. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. This is a tool for testing APIs. Let's paste in the API gateway endpoint and add products after it. And let's send a get request. And you see I get back hello from Lambda. So this is right now not protected at all. So anyone can make requests to this endpoint. And now we're going to protect it with the authorizer. So let's go back. And on the get, as I said, let's set the authorizer. my products authorizer, and then we have to deploy our API. So let's click on deploy API, deploy. Okay, and now let's go back to Postman and send the request again. So this might take a while until this gets deployed. Sometimes you get back cached results. I'm not sure if it's Postman or something else, but sometimes you get cached results. So I'm sending this, and you see I still get a response. So I will keep sending requests, and you see sometimes I'm going to get unauthorized, and after a while all my requests will get unauthorized after this cache expires. So I'm going to wait just until I get a consistent unauthorized back from the API gateway. So I think now it's fine. I'm getting, sometimes I still get Lambda, but mostly it's unauthorized. So now how do I provide a token? So in the headers, I need to send a header, and this will be the authorization header. And here, let me try with a dummy value. Let's click on send. And you see I get back message, user is not authorized to access this resource with an explicit deny. So my IAM policy is restricting me from getting to that business logic function which should return hello world. And the authorizer, if you remember, here it checks for this authorization token, and it should only allow with my secret token. So let's go back and let's try another value here, random, again still explicit deny, and let's try with my secret token, and this time I should get back hello from Lambda. And no matter how many times I'm going to send this request, I am getting hello from Lambda, because the authorizer checks in the background in the Lambda function if the authorization header is my secret token, and if it is, it's allowing the request. So it is as simple as that. So we have created an authorizer, a Lambda authorizer or custom authorizer, and we are able to control here what happens. The magic would be here to implement your own logic to check this token. As I said, call some external provider or check your database if the token is valid, and then allow or deny based on that. Now, this was the video for today. In one of my upcoming videos, I'm going to expand on this custom authorizer, and I'm going to actually expand it with tenant management, how you are managing tenants, and how you are going to allow access based on the tenant to specific resources. Like one tenant should have access to certain DynamoDB records, other tenants to other DynamoDB records in the same table. So stay tuned and look out for that video, because it is coming in the next few weeks. That's it for today. I hope you liked it. If you did, click on the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you soon with another video here on Majestic.cloud.